We are live on my Facebook page in the green room, and I thank you so much for doing this with me.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure.
And Cedar Fox was the one that connected the two of us, and I thank her for that. When I watched the video that I'm about to play, it gave me chills, and um, it really invoked in me some um, the kind of feelings that you get when you watch, like, a movie like Schindler's List, that kind of thing, that how it made you feel. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to, before we get into stuff, because I want to ask you about this film, if you don't, or this documentary that you're about to do. If you don't mind if I play this, and then we can talk on the other side of it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Won't be silent, won't be silent, not for one more day. We'll speak out so future generations will be saved. Won't close our eyes and fear and hide. We'll let our beauty reign. Nothing stands between us and the world we dream to know. Won't be silent.
When I first heard the song, it was the harrowing quality of the melody. It was just, emotionally, it hit me as this bittersweet moment.
I just think that there's angels on earth, and I think they're all showing up for this one moment.
I think this whole thing is a collaborative effort. I think it started with you finding out about your uncle, unearthing the song, bringing it to someone like me to interpret it. The best thing we can do with the song is put it out there for others to interpret and to listen to the words and speak about how that makes them feel.
Let our beauty reign. Nothing stands between us and the world we dream to know. We were made to love no matter how much hate we face. We will fight for those who cannot fight and need us.
No guardaremos el silencio ni un día más. Levantaremos nuestras voces sin temor para abrir camino y elevar nuestra humanidad. Unidos lograremos que en el mundo haya paz.
That moment when he wrote the melody, he was not a prisoner.
This little piece of music that has such a history and that was nearly forgotten and now has such a resonance.
We want people in this current moment of resistance to use their voices.
How did you tell me about how you discovered the song and how the relevance today is what you want to bring it to, from what happened then to what's happening today, and what's your journey with that?
Well, it's been, and the journey is really kind of still just beginning. since we're kind of in this state of lockdown. But just think about that time, around the time the Nazis were marching in Charlottesville. Remember, a couple of summers ago? Now, my uncle had been killed in 1944. So for all due purposes, he was one of the 6 million anonymous Jews, you know. And nobody really knew about him. He just was, again, just in our own family. We knew my uncle's story, which was incredible. But the Nazis were marching in Charlottesville, and sure enough, the Holocaust Museum found a piece of my uncle's piece of music written in a book by someone who had survived the camp that my uncle was in. He was killed hours before the liberation. And they went to Israel and they said, write this piece of music down. It was the mantra that kept me alive, that I believe kept me alive. And just hearing that and getting this random 40-something, 70-something years later piece of information, I said, you know what, there's a documentary in here. I don't know. I just feel like it's been unearthed from the darkest recess of mankind's cruelty and oppression. And, you know, we're living in a culture now, not only here in the United States, but, you know, it's becoming a lot of fascists are rising to power throughout the world. And Europe, Poland again, and, you know, Austria even, and it's here in our own backyard in this administration. I kind of felt that this time of resistance was important to kind of, let me just step back. My uncle wrote this piece of music as a song of resistance to the Nazis when he was in a concentration camp. And before he wrote this piece of music, before he was in the camp, when the Jews were put in the ghettos back in the 41 to 43, he was the conductor of the Vilna Symphony Orchestra before that. So his family and all the people were living in the ghetto, but he still had a special dispensation to go and return to work and conduct, and then at night would have to go back to the ghetto. And him and the other musicians were just so horrified being able to bring something like music and art to these people who were free, yet in the ghetto they were starving. There was, you know, terrible. So him and his colleagues smuggled in all the pieces of the various instruments that are needed for an orchestra, including a piano that was reassembled, smuggled in piece by piece and reassembled, and they had the Vilna Ghetto Orchestra. And he conducted 35 concerts, and it's just an amazing story of music being salvation and music being what people need to hold on to under these kind of situations of sheer horror. And that was just an extraordinary piece of music to be unearthed. And I thought, God, there's got to be something here. Now, just a little backstory about that song is that he wrote the music. The lyrics were originally written by a friend of his in the camp. And the original lyrics was "Stay silent," because that was the only way left to show any form of resistance. Don't let them take your tears. Don't let them see, you know, don't let them take your dignity. And staying silent was the only way to remain, you know, it was the only way to resist, really, you know. So the whole thing was a lot to take in. It was very emotional for my whole family. And a series of events, very kind of serendipitous events, started to happen once we got that email. Now, you have to understand, my whole family has been kind of very distant from, you know, Germany, and that it just was, you know, my mother survived Dachau. So I was raised with all the horror stories, you know. And having your heritage thrown in your face at, you know, the ripe old age that I am was like, something I really wanted to take a look at, and I wanted to see what I can do in terms of telling my uncle's story, because surely his will never get told. And, you know, in America, there is not a tremendous interest in the Holocaust, especially with young people. And I felt like because this was this piece of music, what can I do to make it a relevant piece of music today? So I'm friendly with Cara Diaguardi, who is, you know, an award-winning songwriter. She's worked with everybody from Christina Aguilera and Celine Dion and Britney, and, you know, she's definitely someone who knows how to make a lyric happen. And I contacted her, which I hadn't actually seen her in a few years, and I sent her this little piece of music that was found. So it was some notes on a piece of paper from a book, and I had a friend of mine play it out on the piano, and I recorded it and sent it to her. I sent it to her, and I told her the backstory, and I sent her the original lyrics, which I had translated to English. And within like 2 days, she came back with this whole new message of, you know, that we won't stay silent. And the lyrics really speak to, you know, we'll find our beauty within, and it will save the next generations. And I feel like it's a call to action now for all of us. So that was an extraordinary first experience with taking this piece of music. I was thinking, who should I get to record this, you know? And I really, because of where it comes from, I really didn't want to just go the traditional route to a pop singer to sing it, because it had too deep of a place for me to come from. And I was introduced to the Resistance Revival Chorus, who are these women who met in DC in 2017 at the Women's March after the Trump administration started. And a bunch of these women in New York, and they met and they decided to start this chorus, and had been performing all over the city. They've performed at Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall. They're really amazing. And they agreed to record the song, and I did that first recording, which was so incredible. And what was great about the orchestra and with the chorus is that they it's multicultural, different ages, different races, different religions, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, in Hindu. It was just this beautiful expression of what I wanted this song to become. And being in that room, and I have beautiful sound bites of all the performers that I kind of turn the camera on them after the recording. And yeah, I just felt like this is something I need to do, which is have different musicians interpret the piece of music. So then I was introduced to Antonique Smith through the woman who's one of the executive producer on the project, Jane Oster, and they knew each other, worked on a project together, and Antonique came in and she brought a couple of really cool young producers to come in and make this kind of harrowing, beautiful, haunting piece of music into something that's much more fresh and current, and you know, it was great. So that was another experience, being in the room of creating that sound, and with the producers and just the different techniques they had to find their vibe, to find their groove. And it was all centered around my uncle's piece of music. You know, that's like, I've actually felt like I've given birth, and this was my child, and I was damned if I wasn't going to give it the best, healthiest life it could be in whatever power I had, which is not a lot, but it still can. It comes from such a honest place that I feel like only good can happen. And that's why there's a quote in that little snippet that the people that have started coming on board and have come into my life as a result of this are all like these angels on earth, you know. And it's just extraordinary because we all have, our family histories are very similar. Somewhere along the line there is oppression. Somewhere along the line we're immigrants. I mean, we're all immigrants. You know, even the Blue Bloods, they came here, you know what I mean? No one's from here unless you're Native American. And other than that, you're an immigrant, and it was extra. And so it was always my intention to draw the connection between the concentration camp, the cotton fields, and the inner city streets, because I feel like those are three very similar situations in that it's oppressive, there's no way out, there's the dreary day-to-day grind, and I felt like this is what I wanted to kind of make sure that was the story behind the piece of music. Yes, I want to tell my uncle's story. Yes, what he did in the ghetto with the music is just, I mean, even the Germans would come and listen to his concerts in the ghetto. That's how incredible, because he was like the premier conductor, you know, in Vilna, which was the European cultural center of, you know, Jewish life. Anyway, it's just been a lot. It's been a lot of great things and a lot of gifts and a lot of joy. And even though we're kind of, there was 3 shoots that were supposed to happen starting March, of course, that had to get canceled. So there was a gospel choir in North Carolina was going to do a version of the song. And from there, we were going to go to Nashville and we were going to do a country version of the song. And from there, we were coming back to Los Angeles to do a hip hop version of the song. And, you know, no one's shooting anything. So that will resume. And whenever COVID kind of relaxes, we'll be able to go back to those same people and safe distance. You know, I'm sure there'll be social distancing for quite a while to come with shooting and video and art and things. But so that's pretty much up to the minute-ish. I'm sure I missed. Oh, I have to tell you this thing that happened in Germany. So part of this journey is that my family randomly, and I'm not exaggerating, was invited by the German government to my whole family to come to Germany because they were doing a weekend of events honoring my uncle. Like, I am not kidding. They flew us, they put us up. It was an extraordinary experience. I had a woman, this wonderful woman had curated whatever she could find on my uncle and did like an art exhibition, and then they recreated a concert where they played my uncle. It was just one of these things that you like can't even believe this. It's like I say in one of my quotes, you can't even write this. You just can't even imagine this is going to happen. It's not only that this piece of music came, but actually his story started coming. So anyway, so this was a couple of Mays ago, and that evening after the performance, I was chatting with some guy, and he happened to have been the conductor of the Bavarian Symphony Orchestra. And he was so moved by the whole story that he said, oh, we'll figure out, maybe we can do something one day. So I come back to America, and sure enough, that January, he emails me and said, buy a ticket and come to Munich on March 17th. And sure enough, what he did is he took that little piece of music and he commissioned a really cool German composer to create this beautiful extended interlude. And I literally was invited to the world premiere of this song that became a 100-voice choir and a 55-piece orchestra. And the song was presented that evening. It was the spring gala for the Bavarian Symphony Orchestra in Munich in the Hercules Theater, which is the most gorgeous theater I'd ever seen. And like a 1,200 audience, packed house. And it was sandwiched between the presentation between Schubert's Unfinished Symphony and Mozart's Last Symphony and my uncle's piece of music. And it was like, okay, I've done my job. I can leave Earth now, you know. I really feel like no matter, you know, and the truth is, no matter whether the film happens or not, the fact that my uncle's piece of music was presented in Germany along Germany's greats of music is a testament. And I have that beautiful film. We filmed it. It's beautiful, and it's this 10-minute beautiful piece. I'll send it to you. You should absolutely watch it. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
And you know, and this has been what my life is all about. You know, and you know, it comes with its ups and its downs, as anything creative is, as you know.
Right.
And I'm just here for the journey, and COVID is part of it. So I'm trying to. So what I did right away was I thought, what better way to say, you know, I won't be silent now is than by voting. So I've been working with this Voting Rights Alliance in Washington, D.C. They're a very kind of grassroots, active, kind of in the background of policy making related to voting rights. And I've been making all the public service announcements, and I've been using the song in all the various versions to help tell their story. I just did, as I sent you, after John Lewis passed away, we did like a piece just honoring him using the music as well. So I get a chance to kind of think that I'm doing something, you know, but I feel like I am definitely continuing to stay on the message of, you know, we just can't and won't be silent. Not now and not ever, no matter who wins in the White House, you know?
Right. You know, as you're telling your story, I just have to say there seems to be so many layers to this and parallels from your story and your uncle's story in Nazi Germany to things that are happening today. And especially when it comes to voter suppression and that sort of thing. So the things that happened, I believe, in Nazi Germany, how it's sort of developed and you know, rights got taken away, and all of a sudden they woke up one day and you know, it's gone.
You're nobody.
Right. So you take that and what's happening in our country today, and the Holocaust deniers that are out there as well.
Of course.
So all of that is sort of being brought to the surface right now. So the timing of this is really relevant, I think, in terms of what we need to stand up against in our country right now.
Yeah,
you're just in the last couple of days. Right. You know, just in the last couple of days, you know, the idea that of, you know, stopping mail-in voting and you know, oh, it's okay if Florida does it, but everywhere else we can't do mail-in voting. We can't do absentee voting.
Like,
you know,
hello, who's okay? There's a madman running. You know, there's a movie from the 70s that if you haven't seen it, it's a must. It's called The King of Hearts. Have you ever seen that film with Alan Bates? It's amazing. It takes place in during World War II in this tiny little city in France, tiny little town in France, where it's just like a very tiny little village. And in the village, there's a mental institution. And when the Nazis come to take over France, the people who were working in the mental institution run for their lives, and they don't lock the gates. And all the crazy people resume their positions in the town. So when the Germans come in, it's all these like totally whacked out people, like hookers, barbers, restaurateurs. It's fantastic. So it's like the crazy people are running the town. You know what I mean? It's a must film. It's really amazing. But so there's a crazy person running our lives and manipulating our lives because of the media. And it's 24 hours a day. And he's, you know, as much as I hate him, he's brilliant at keeping the story about him. And I mean, the only thing I can hope is that people just get so bored of that story that come voting day, you know, however you vote, you just realize that you don't want to listen. I don't want to listen to him for 4 more years.
Right. I'm worn out. I was worn out the first month. Like, so how do you, this also seems to tie in wonderfully to the Black Lives Matter movement as well.
I mean, it does in that it's the same thing that I said between the inner city streets, slavery, concentration camp. You know, it's been it's been disheartening for me this past couple of weeks, where you hear the rise of anti-Semitism within the Black Lives Matter community. It's kind of upsetting because we share so much of a similar story. You know, we're not the enemy. You know, and to just kind of identify a few rich people that happen to be Jewish. You know what I mean? And kind of the tropes of that to be the lead story when, you know, we're not the enemy. You know what I mean? It's the white supremacists we all have to focus on. They're the ones who want to rid the world of Black people, Jewish people, anyone that isn't Aryan, you know? And we have, even though Jared Kushner is the Jew in the White House, you'd never know it because he is equal slime to his father-in-law. You know, did you see that article in Vanity Fair about him and how that $42 million is missing that was supposed to go towards testing and that the media doesn't touch that story? What, 6 people read Vanity Fair? Me and 5 others. It's like, why isn't the media jumping on that? It's unbelievable. Right. And then he hired a friend of his to start lending money to international companies with that $42 million. It's endless.
There's just so much wrong with all of that. And, you know, I think I keep thinking about what your uncle might have gone through during the whole Germany thing, and trying to come up with some sort of idea of how the country in the Nazis just slowly kind of took over and everybody was kind of okay with it, and compare that to how we are today. And
well, I can break that down to you really scarily.
Yeah.
Think about it. In 1923, he wrote Mein Kampf, right? Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. Dachau was built in 1933. Nobody knows that. Wow. They were putting away prisoners and intellectuals and writers. That's how it all started. The media. See, the Nazi thing didn't just start when the war was. That was leading it. There was years of that. And he didn't get into power until, like, I think 30 or 31. So just imagine timeline-wise, the idea of Mein Kampf versus the reality of it being a full-on implemented plan by, what, 34 something? That's 14 years. When did Donald Trump start talking about Obama you have to go back to that moment when he started that. So that's 2000 what, 13, 12, something like that.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, we're like on a plan. And plus, Mein Kampf was the night table reading of Donald Trump. So he's full on ready to roll. I think he gives Jared all these things to work on so that he fails, so he can be like, get rid of the Jew. That's what I think. I think he's a big anti-Semite. I do.
You know, he's against everybody that isn't exactly like him, which is white and wealthy, maybe. But
ugly. I mean, his skin looks like cantaloupe. I can't even, just the fact that we have to look at him so much. Thank God for Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, because at least you have options to watching the news, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about what you do, other than this is a magnificent story, and I think that it's going to be something that is the video, and I want it to. I'm hoping that it gets told, and that as the voting and the election comes up, that this won't be silent kind of movement. I hope it would. I would like to see it become a movement.
Well,
And
what I'm doing.
I was a little discouraged about how the black.
Yeah,
Go
you
ahead.
go. No, you go. 100% go. You were discouraged about what?
Oh, so well, and we were talking a little bit last week about. I was discouraged about the Black Lives Matter movement that sort of fell by the wayside during the protest in Portland, and all of a sudden the subject got changed to this, the rioting and the looting and the
Militarization
protesting,
of
and
police, yeah.
people stopped talking about slavery. Right. So I'm afraid that the narrative keeps getting shifted away from what we need to stay focused on.
You know what? Yeah, of course, you're 100% right, and I think that's what I have to come to terms with this project, especially because I'm going to lose 6 to 8 months trapped in the house, whatever, for the most part, or restricted to my movement. Is that I have to just know that this message resonates beyond November 3rd. So what I want to do is I'm starting in the next few weeks, I'm starting a YouTube channel, Won't Be Silent, and I want people to kind of say what they won't be silent about. We'll post it, and I want to create this community where at least we're keeping this conversation alive. And I'm just kind of putting those pieces together now. That's why when you called, it was like, oh, it's no coincidence. It gives me a chance to kind of focus on keeping the message alive. That's what I was doing with the voter suppression organization. That's what I've done a few things for March for Our Lives. I did something for Rock the Vote as well. And I have a friend of mine who's who's Spanish, who's going to contact Voto Latino, because I have a version of it in Spanish. So, we were considered for one of the Biden campaign events, but it didn't get as far up the chain as it needed to, but whatever. It's almost okay that it didn't, because the truth is I have to stay bipartisan in terms of an audience, you know what I mean? And as much as I know what I need to do, and I am committed to who I am and not changing anything, but in terms of the message of the song, it applies to everybody. And if Biden does win, and there'll be a lot of stuff that's still not going to happen smooth, and there's going to be things that people are still going to be pissed about, and there's going to be, our government does not run like a well-oiled machine, no matter who's in.
Right.
Think about it. Without going too far back into history, but it's mostly the Democrats that end up having a positive cash flow in the coffer, so there's no way that's going to happen right away if Biden takes over. Our economy is so splintered that, we're going to be in the quagmire of Donald Trump, with or without him, for years to come.
Right.
Which is why I want to believe that the more I keep true to, look, if Donald Trump didn't, if this wasn't about Donald Trump right now, the piece of this music coming from resistance is always going to be relevant. No matter, again, there's the economy, there's women's rights, there's gay rights, there's immigration. There's all these things are not going to be sewn up like in a pretty bow come, November 4th, in the event it's a Biden win, and especially if we don't get the Senate. Like, there's the turmoil. No, this is not going to be a turmoil-free country for years to come. You know what I mean? And I want to be just part of the message of hope, because music is freedom. for people. Music is freedom. That's an amazing thing to say, you know. And the woman that told me that is the woman who's the head of the Louis Armstrong School of Music and Medicine in Mount Sinai. And they use music in conjunction with medicine to heal people, not only, you know, PTSD, but also like medical, physical, you know, cancer, all of these different, they have a various broad spectrum of success when they use it in concert together. Not a lot of people know about this, but I think it's amazing. And she said that music is freedom. And it just, it applies to my uncle. It applies to people in the inner city, like, you know, NYR, like from Compton, or the spirituals in the cotton fields. They were free. That was their way to be, you know? And I just think that that's going to keep going.
Yeah, the whole shutdown has been really hard on a lot of the musicians and the whole entertainment industry. And I've been having a lot of talks with people about that. So your involvement, give me a little bit of your background in the entertainment world and how you got to Los Angeles that led you to this.
Well, I mean, I lived in New York City. I'm from, you know, from the East Coast, and started out for years in the fashion industry, but primarily my background was events, and I produced a lot of events and fashion shows and, you know, glamorous bullshit, you know what I mean? But then I moved to I've come and gone from Los Angeles a few different times, like pockets. I worked for Carrie Fisher for years, and that was a great learning curve and an inside look at the Hollywood Dream Machine, which was extraordinary. And then I went back to New York, and then I started a small boutique agency where we did events and PR and mostly fashion, but some entertainment stuff. And I worked on a couple of documentaries in terms of helping them do premieres and raise some money. And then I had a really bad accident. I mean, I'm putting 500 years in one sentence. Then I had a really bad bicycle accident and needed to heal, and I came out to LA. It was the dead of winter, and I was like lost use of my writing arm. But I never left. And Carrie said, come stay at my house. I was living in the beach for a few months, healing. And Carrie, who we kept in touch, said, just come stay in my guest house. You'll figure out what else you're going to do in New York. You're too old to go back to New York. Anyway. And yeah, so I never left. And I just, you know, I produced photo shoots and video shoots, and I've done, you know, sort of makeup brands, and, you know, I've had like a pretty interesting list of clients over the years. They come and go, but I've been freelance my whole life. So I'm very used to the downtime, you know, which I'm knee deep in the middle of right now. But yeah, so I'm up to do like a music video in a few weeks and whatever. These things just come and go. But this project, interestingly enough, around the time the Nazis were marching in Charlottesville, I was going through a time in my life where I was like, what am I going to leave behind on Earth? Like, who the fuck am I, you know? And, you know, it's hard because my mother survived Dachau. My father was part of the underground. So these are two very heroic people that raised me. And what? I'm doing Maybelline commercials. So it was kind of like a disconnect in terms of, you know, because they're no longer here and they've left plenty behind. They had a fulfillment of life and everything you can really ask for in terms of joy and health and prosperity. And really, I just was questioning everything in a very kind of dark place. This thing happened, you know, this thing lifted me from a place of despair, but to the point of just like seeking, you know. I'm kind of spiritual anyway, but when things get daunting, you know, it just, you have to kind of revisit what you're doing here. And I couldn't have asked for a better gift. And I don't know what the end result of this thing is going to be, but I can assure you, I am going to try every stone, turning every stone until something that continues to feel as rewarding as this. So that's why, I mean, I think this trying to create a community of people saying what they won't be silent about is going to be a fun thing to do. And the interesting thing is we can do it like this. I don't have to go film a lot of people. I just have to start reaching out through social media to ask people to submit it. So I have to just formulate a little bit more of a marketing plan around it, because I want it to kind of be thought through and visually whatever. And I just, somebody I know recommended someone who does social media marketing stuff. So I'm looking into that. But, you know, it's more about not my story as much as being able to tell my uncle's story, and in turn, everyone gets a chance to tell the story.
Right.
It's kind of, I just put a little promo together that I'm trying to figure this thing out. But I feel like COVID has given all of us a really deep sense of looking at who we are, you know. And the interesting thing about what happened in March around the world is that around the same time, the whole world, we were all confronted with mortality that same day. And if you think about it, that is man's greatest fear. It's like, oh, I can die, you know what I mean? So the whole world went through that in one fell swoop. And I feel like the people that are coming back out of that, because a lot of people got depressed, got drugs, drinking, whatever, you hear about it in the news. But I feel like this is a moment for people to say, you know, let me tell my story. So I want to capture that, and I want to capture that and give people their moment to not only say what they won't be silent about, but just leave a piece of themselves behind. It's easy enough. It's not like reinventing the wheel. It's just a matter of letting people know that you want to do this and asking people to join you, you know, and you're going to be one of those people, by the way.
Well, you know, I would be happy to be involved in anything and add any kind of voice. It sounds like you're a real creative kind of guy, and this project, Won't Be Silent, seems to capture a lot of your interests and passions, and lets you use the things you enjoy to do, like bring people together and talk to people and promote things.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, it wasn't what I didn't set out in that mindset. It's just me in the bargain, how I kind of want people to feel engaged, you know. But thanks for saying that, because it's really nice to hear.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've been kind of a guy in my life that, you know, I was a musician, and, you know, now I'm not a musician. I'm doing sound, but I'm a good talker. I like getting people together. I'm interested in, you know, video, and, you know, I'm not really good at a lot of stuff, but I'm really good at finding people to do things.
Right.
And it seems like what you've told me and what I've read about you, that's you're good at that too. You're good at finding people to do stuff.
Yeah. Producers.
Right. Yeah. And that's in essence what a producer is. And then if you can also bring that together in a story, you know, you said something really the perfect point is, everyone has a story, and everybody really would like to just be heard. They would just like to, right? And
Definitely.
And what you're doing will give people a chance to be able to, I just want to tell my story. I want to tell my part of where I've come from.
Well, I would love for you to do that. You'll be the first. We can do it right after we finish this. No, I mean, in the next couple of weeks, I'm just rolling out what the plan is, and I would love for you to do it.
Yeah.
I want everybody on earth to tell their story. Everyone does matter, you know? And the whole thing about Black Lives Matter, it's like I was bused to an all black high school, so I know, having know what my parents survived, you know, they come to America, they get, you know, their feet on the ground. The first city we lived in, the first town I was born and raised in for the first 12 years of my life is this little town called Weehawken, New Jersey, coincidentally where Alexander Hamilton was shot by Aaron Burr. That was the only claim to fame there, that and me. But the fact remains that that was, oh, I forgot my point. All right. Anyway, what were we talking about? Why was I talking about birthplace? All right, forget it.
Their story, everybody's story, and
right.
And you,
I lost it. Edit it out. No, keep it in. Anyway, we walk in New Jersey. We could go into a whole soliloquy of that.
you know the beauty of this thing that I'm doing. I basically want to just talk to people, and there's awesome. No real, I don't really have a format or a formula. I just kind of like you. I just want to hear people's stories, and
yeah, I think everybody wants their story told. Oh, I remember. So here, my parents come from oppression land, U.S. Weehawken, New Jersey. We were the only. There was 2 Jewish families in this town, and I was sent to a parochial school, like a yeshiva. And when I would get off the bus, I would get chased and ridiculed. So I had anti-Semitism in my face since I was 6, And then when we moved to like a more affluent part of town, and it was like just a much more healthier environment in terms of where we actually live, but it was a little hamlet where there was no high school. So I got bused to an all-black, predominantly black high school. So it was like, I understand what it's like to be in the street and to be in the street and get smart and be able to handle life, So I am very, sympathetic to what their history is in America. It's gross. I mean, between black and Indians, like, yikes. You can't even try to imagine that. Like, if you think about the story of Thanksgiving, it's like you'll never eat turkey again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a catastrophe. I'm sorry.
Yeah. My grandmother, my dad's mom, was Native American. She was a Sioux Indian, the Sioux Nation, and the way the country has treated the Native Americans is appalling as well. I mean,
okay, we're the grossest people on earth. I'm sorry. We make the Nazis look like a bargain. I'm sorry.
We really are.
I mean, it's greed, but it's all about greed. It's greed. And the problem with that is that it's innate in mankind. It's just, this comes from greed, land grabbing and this, and, tobacco farming and who are we? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're vilified if you're not that. And like, there's so many people that I actually know that have crossed over from this democratic mindset. It's kind of, they're like becoming these weird QAnon like Republicans, and these are people that are like cool, smart, whatever, and have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid.
Have you
anybody like that?
Have you noticed the fascination with all of the conspiracy theories lately? It's mind-boggling.
That it allows to get retweeted and reposted. Are you ready? I have been taken off Twitter because there was this woman, Candace Owens, who's the most
yeah.
disgusting human being on earth, and she said that when the whole Black Lives Matter thing was started with George Floyd, she blamed it on George Soros, the Jew, and his money. And I called her a fucking bitch, which, excuse me, she is. And I've been taken off Twitter ever since then.
Are you kidding?
Nope.
And Trump can still say the shit he says.
You know what? It just makes me real. You know, it's like, you know what? I remember living on Earth without Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all of it. And you know what I mean? My life's not any worse off because I can't. Twitter's become such an angry universe anyway.
Oh.
You know, it's like, but what really annoys me about not only Twitter, but also MSNBC and CNN as well, they're constantly in a state of incredulousness. Like, you're surprised by any of it? Why isn't anybody on camera going every night, Trump is a murderer, Pence is a murderer?
Right.
Murderer.
Yeah.
Murderer. He's a murderer. No one's saying it. Look how long it took him to even use the word liar. Look how it took 3 years to use the word liar. His untruth, you know, like, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who do you think is going to be the VP pick for Biden?
Well, I
can of worms.
You know, my theory would be it's going to be surprise. He'll walk out and then he'll announce her to come out, and it'll be Michelle Obama.
Oh, that would be so cute.
That would be. I
think earth shattering.
Yeah, I mean, I would just.
So not happening.
But you know, I think Susan Rice would be a mistake. Because the Republican, yeah, she's too tied with past things that they can use her as the enemy. You know what I mean?
I look at it this way. I happen to I'm not sold on any one particular. I like Kamala, have from day one, and choice. I think Susan Rice is not a horrible choice. I hear what you're saying. But what I feel like what the difference between the crazy Republicans going after her past, whereas in November, we may have the second wave of this thing, and suburban mothers are not going to be interested. If you say the word Benghazi one more time, I'm going to fucking choke you. My kid has this, my thing is that. And I think it's going to be the suburban mothers that end up coming through with this election. And I hope I'm right, but you know, there's a big push for the young people and whatever. And I happen to really like looking at TikTok. And I think if those kids that are on TikTok do show up and vote,
yeah,
especially if they're in states where the mail-in ballots will be okay and won't be questions, because there's a bunch of states where they've been doing it for years. I was listening today on The Daily, you know, that podcast from the New York Times. It's a really good podcast. They were talking about the mail-in voting thing, but there's like a handful of states that have been doing this for years. And in those states, and if any of those are kind of those states that he has a must win, they can just do it from their home. They're not, you know, everyone's saying, oh, kids won't show up. I think these kids, these Gen Z kids, are going to show up like it's a rock concert. They're going to sleep out like they're getting tickets to a Supreme sweatshirt. Right. I think they're laying down on the ground for days. I think so. I think everyone's going to go, wow. I think these Gen Zers are not going to disappoint.
I hope so. And I hope that it's such a big turnout that and he's so crushed that there's no way you can deny it, and it'll come in really quickly, and it'll be obvious like within a couple of days that he's going to lose. And
I mean, the Kanye thing is really annoying. Kanye needs to go into a mental institution and locked up. Period.
There is something wrong with him.
Fuck up.
I know.
You know what I mean? And he's not doing any favors to the Black Lives Matter movement.
No.
I don't care who's following him.
You're right.
And
No.
for Elon Musk to be his first cheerleader, it was because he wants more Black people to drive Teslas, because you don't normally see that. It's like an old white woman's car.
Right. Right. It's the kind of, you know, that the country clubs, you pull into. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, I need the Gucci marketing plan now. I need that Gucci, you know. It's obvious as and the whole TikTok, and for Microsoft to want to buy TikTok, it's like, can you get any more of an opposite kind of marketing? Like Mac, you know, Microsoft is so not hip and relevant. You know what I mean?
Not even remotely close. But maybe it's their plan to maybe get relevant. You know, maybe capture. You know, who knows?
Change their name to like Mike. You know what I mean? You know. Did you see that they made the remake of Scooby-Doo? Where are you? Remember that cartoon Scooby-Doo?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they relaunched it this year. It came out. They did the day before like COVID, but it's called Scoob. Now it's not Scooby-Doo anymore.
No,
yes.
Man. No.
Scoob. So then Microsoft has to go for Mike. I'm with Mike.
Oh, so that's funny. Oh man. Well, Abe, man, I so appreciate you doing this. So when this all comes together, when you have your YouTube channel, how are people going to find you?
Won't Be Silent is my channel name.
Okay, Won't Be Silent. And
yeah, Won't Be. So the call to action is Won't Be Silent is my channel name on YouTube. It Won't Be Silent is my Instagram handle. On Facebook, it's Won't Be Silent Anymore.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have, they'll all be connected, and it's all gonna be one lovely little universe, I guess. And I guess I'll do, you know, I'm started just, I'm too old to be on TikTok, but I still am just throwing up some of the content. I don't want them to think, oh, grandpa's here, you know. But no, Won't Be Silent is the channel for YouTube. That's going to be the one, and that's going to be the place where I want people to come and just say what they won't be silent about. And I just truly believe that people are going to have things to talk about for years to come. Because politics does play a lot in our lives, but our lives now, you know, we have to get out from under now. You know, there's going to be a lot of emotional stuff that people are just going to have to address and want to talk about and be honest, and you know, whether it's conversation or just like speaking from the heart. You know, not everyone's allowed the luxury of therapy, you know, and I feel like this might be an opportunity for people to just shed some of the stuff.
Doesn't it feel to you like we're at a point that any kind of dysfunction that anybody could have it's rising to the surface? It's like all of it, all across the board, is all coming up right now. Well,
we're all confronted with everything, not only our inner demons,
right,
but fears, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I fortunately don't have an addiction at this particular juncture, but you know, no, but I used to be a drug addict. You know, I lived long enough to survive a lot of that, you know, and I couldn't imagine having, like, especially those first few months of COVID when everything was so silent and everything was so eerie. I remember those first few months. It was like you could hear a pin drop in Los Angeles. It was so weird.
It was weird, but Abe, I got to tell you, I kind of liked it.
I got into it.
Yeah, my 15-year-old and I would get in a car and we just drive down to downtown LA, and there'd be nobody there. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. No. I mean, look, I'm freelance, so my schedule hasn't changed much, except those occasional bursts of work. You know what I mean? But no, I mean, I am a firm believer in you. These are teaching moments. You know, you make these your teaching. You make this your teaching moment. You can't let it get the better of you. You know, I have a husband I live with, and he's very, and he's a hairdresser. So like the salons are closed, so he doesn't even know what to do with himself. So he has to learn that this is an opportunity for you to hone your business, hone your marketing skills, get clients, do what you need to do, so that it's not all about giving the power to the salon. It's the power of what you are. Find yourself in this mire. We're all in it. That's why the website, the YouTube channel, is a way for me to creatively continue to have this conversation and not be like lost. I mean, the pitch as the project is getting around town. We're not getting a lot of yeses at the moment, but it's gone to, it's going through the channels. It was rejected from Netflix, whatever. It's not for everybody. It's just not, so, but it's going through the steps, and we're going through the hoops. But until anything like that happens, again, we have to go back to Estonia, to the concentration camp where he was killed. The guy that's helping me with the producing of it wants to like be in the space and have the song performed at that location. Yeah, definitely. What? Of course. And we want to go to the ghetto where he had the concert. And, I have a list of the 35 performances that he did in there. And I want to kind of have some, that's like good shit, Plus, right. I also want to, in my heart of hearts, and if everything goes according to like the non-plan, I want to recreate film recreations of the smuggling, of the instruments, and and visually see that. So this is a long road ahead. I just have to hope that I live long enough, because these things do not happen overnight. But this is what I'm doing. I'll be damned if I'm gonna die trying. That much I know.
Right. Well, I'm actually glad that I'm being able to witness the birth of it a little bit. You're kind of this at the beginning stages of it, right?
Totally in the beginning. I mean, I have stuff filmed, but the story still needs to be told. Yeah, this is definitely the beginning. And I want you to be.
I'm happy that
it won't be silent pitch too for the website. Would you?
Okay.
Good. I'll let you know.
Absolutely.
It'll be in the next couple of weeks. Awesome. So that's it. You're finished.
Okay, and then well, we're at an hour and 5 minutes.
Wow, that went fast.
I know it. When I first started doing this, I thought, well, I'll do 30 minutes. But man, once you start talking to somebody, I mean, you get in a conversation and an hour goes by in a hurry.
Perfecto. Thank you so much. It was really fun.
Won't be silent, not for one more day.